A knockout thriller. Brilliant, compelling, grips you by the throat. A chiller. Terror comes often enough to lower our body temperatures. For more raves, please turn the page. A must-read. Moves at a steady, nail-biting pace on a roller coaster of fear. Eerie fun. Terrifying. Sleep with the lights on. Guarantees a shivering good time. Well, everybody, I did not think the same. The #1 best-selling novel by Stephen King, The Dark Half, I thought was a challenge. Dull. Probably could have been cut in half and probably condensed down to 200 pages instead of 467 pages. But, alas, here we are. And me, not a successful writer, and Stephen King is pretty much a legend. So anyways, let's get into it. Thank you for stopping by the Fervor Review, guys. We're going to talk about my journey in overcoming my challenge and struggle to complete this book, but I did, and I am proud. So, let's get into today's book. The reason I decided to read another Stephen King novel was I read The Shining, and I reviewed that, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was super great. I mean, Stephen King's a great writer. I mean, hey, the man can put some words down on a page. However, I felt like the words he chose for most of these pages were just overly explained, too drawn out. It was kind of like a situation where wherever there wasn't dialogue was considered for slow motion. And I think maybe there was a deadline he had to make in 1989 to satisfy a publishing contract. These are just theories of mine, but I definitely thought that this book just lacked something for the viewer that I particularly was not very drawn to. Now let's talk about the good things of this book. You know, let's not bash it down right away, okay? First of all, the cover's cool. You see the little eyes? Like, this must be the Dark Half, but if you look closer, they're sparrows. Because sparrows take a huge role in this book, at least the good half of it. It's not very clear to me why they're sparrows. I mean, something with the main character. So Thad, the main character, when he's 11, he has he had an epileptic episode, and he gets brain surgery because I think it's a tumor. It's not. He actually absorbed his twin in utero, or ate his twin, whichever way you prefer to think about it in your head.
And it's none of your business, but I ate my twin in utero.
Yeah, and then he wakes up and he hears sparrows. He hears things. He hears sparrows. And after the surgery, you've learned that, there was a bunch of sparrows, outside his window, but nowhere else. And it was, really alarming, and I don't know. That was interesting. But the book is the book is interesting. The storyline was, it was creative. Thad, he grows up after this brain surgery event, and he was already seen as a good writer as a kid, and then he grows up, and he's, an English professor. He's written some books. They didn't really take off very well. He writes under a pen name, George Stark, and those books get really popular and they really take off. And he kind of took on a different personality when he was writing as George. And then somebody tries to blackmail them, and they're like, you know what? Thad and his wife are like, you know what? We're good. We don't need George. We can tell the world that that's Thad writing these books all along. So they do a big publication, and somehow George Stark is alive and killing all the people who put a stop to him being a writer, his pen name being used, and anyone who interfered in that whole situation. So there's a string of serial killings that happen, and it's just this strange supernatural event, and there's no reason for it, which I like that. I like this is just how it is, and this is just what happens. Okay. But what I didn't like was that I felt there was just so much overly explaining of everything that it didn't allow me as the reader, as the viewer, to really engage or be a part of the investigation. It's fun when you read and what's going to happen next? Or, oh, I bet it's going to be this. No, there was none of that here. Not at all. It was basically, they tell you everything, and then you read the details, how it plays out. And it wasn't really nothing was a surprise. It's yeah, we knew that. Or of course this was going to happen. Because of all of this stuff happened. And it was just kind of just being like told a story that I was reading, and it just was hard to really be, I guess, riveted by it, because it left a distance. You couldn't engage. You just had to read and keep going. And that was the hardest part for me. And when you read a book that you're really just not taken with, it's just, you end up abandoning reading for a while. And this took a lot of effort on my part. Like, I tried so hard to finish this book, and I did. I achieved my goals. God, I mean, I'm proud, but at the same time, like, I'm so excited to read something else. Like, God, I can't wait. So, but yeah, the storyline was good. I thought the last 100 pages were interesting. It really moved a lot more. What it also kind of reminded me of, too, was, like, the early Batman series where, like, Batman and Robin, like, follow a plane or, like, a hot air balloon, and they land on a mountain very softly. And then there's, like, happens to be, like, a telephone booth right there that they can call for help. And, like, everything just, like, happens to be a coincidence that just works out for them. And so I felt like certain things that were added in this book as you're reading it just, like, showed up for, like, a certain purpose, but there was, like, no other reason for them. Like Dr. Lessepi, who's, like, who's a professor that works with Thad. He just shows up because he happens to be at the school when Thad's there, and his phone happens to ring so Thad can have a phone call with George. And the guy smokes a pipe, but he also, like, knows something about sparrows. And he just happens to have a whistle to give Thad. And also, Thad ends up using his car, but it was like how he was inserted and when he was inserted in the story just seemed kind of like, oh. It's like you needed to explain how you got from A to C, but here was B. Like, we got here because we had, Professor Lessepi, whatever his name is, show up. So that was kind of funny to me. But yeah, overall, I think that I wouldn't recommend this book to read if you wanted to read a Stephen King novel. I think that I would read others. I mean, I saw he wrote Carrie. I've seen that as a child. That was horrifying. So maybe I would go back or read that. Salem's Lot I heard was really good. I enjoyed The Shining. Maybe we'll just start there. Oh, The Night Shift I think I heard was something maybe to think about. But you know what, you guys, I'm going to take a break from Stephen King. But this was hard to read. I'm curious what you guys thought about it. If you enjoyed reading this book, if you have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I just think for me, I do enjoy like when characters have their own introspection and they have thoughts about how the things that are happening to them, and you get to learn more about them. Like there's an engagement, there's like an intrigue. You're interested in these characters, and they all have their own things going on, and then how they overlap with each other, I think, is something I'm really interested in. But in this case, there was no really interest. There was kind of an introspection, but it's like, you're being talked to about the person, like from a distance, and then you're learning things about them, but it's almost like, I didn't really need to know all these things, or this thing didn't really have an amount. And I really think if this book was condensed down, cut 200 pages out, it'd probably been a much more interesting story, and I would have read it obviously a lot faster, but I think I would have been much more engaged with it. So it was just an interesting thing. I don't know. I just think maybe he had a deadline to meet with his publisher, and that's probably all I could get out of it. So anyways, thank you guys for listening to my rant on why I didn't really enjoy this book, but I hope you join me in being proud of my accomplishment of reading something that I really didn't enjoy that much, and I'm really excited to share the next story with you, which I hope will be much more exciting